Okay.
Yeah, it's actually.
We are now at lesson 4. It is the 17th of March 2016. Samuel and Elijah. Right, let's carry on. Okay, so in our last lesson, lesson 3, we learned about a case of Yahwism. This cult of, or the system of worship of Yahwism introduced, or some say by Moses, or most conservative scholars say it's by Moses who set it up. I'm being one of the conservatives. This system was supposed to be implemented when the people enter into the land of Israel, or at the time, of course, they didn't call it the land of Israel. It was the land of Canaan. Okay, so they were entering into this almost foreign land, as a land that they've never ever lived in for the last 400 years. All they knew was Egypt, and all they knew was the worship of the Egyptian gods, okay, of which God kind of basically destroyed and decimated in the 10 plagues. And so here they are finding themselves in a foreign land, in a different place, and they are asked by God to take all these fortifications, these fortresses that are built on a hill country terrain, things which they may not be trained for. These are normal like farmers and builders. Wait, then again, builders may know how the engineering of certain fortifications are done, so maybe you get that of that. But whatever it is, it's not something easy for these Israelites to do, where they have to go and conquer lands and take certain things. So in the map, you have this central place of worship, which is known as Shiloh, where the Mishkan, or the tabernacle of Moses, is situated, and surrounding Shiloh is all the other tribes, right? So you've got Ephraim, you've got Manasseh, you've got Gilead, this area here, you've got Zebulun, you've got Asher, you've got all these other guys, okay? And so on. Okay, so you've got 12 tribes scattered all over, Levites running around, right? And we see actually in the last story of the book of Judges, a tragic story of Levites getting, entwined into a serious crisis in the country. In fact, it's actually, some say that it could be that Levi could actually be related to Moses, one of Moses' grandsons, grandchildren. Now, just a side note about Moses here is, Moses is actually not really legit Hebrew, in the sense that his descendants, he's married to a foreigner. His wife, Zipporah, is not a Jew. Okay? So his son, Gershom, is not a legit Jew. Okay? So in that sense, the high priestly line was not with Moses. Although he's from the Levites, Moses is from the Levitical line, right? And so is his brother Aaron, which is the line which God used. Aaron was the firstborn son. God worked through Aaron and all his sons after that. Okay, but that high priestly line was severed. Was broken at the exile. Okay, a lot of things are changed or were changed at the exile, and a few key dates here. When was the exile? The final exile, the exile of exiles. Okay, you try it.
1-4.
No, 1-4 something.
1200.
Remember I told you all about dates? You didn't remember certain dates?
722.
That's the first exile. What's the second exile? The
Wait.
exile of exile. Yeah, check your notes if you have notes. Okay, if you have notes, it should tell you that the second exile, or the exile of exile. There are a few key dates you need to remember.
586.
Yes, 586.
Because you told this at the running mode, you were like, oh, 613.
So 586, right? There are a few dates that you need to remember. Right, 722. A few sets of numbers you need to remember. Right. Right. 1-4000 or 1-1000. You need to remember. And of course 70 AD. Okay, but anyway, so they come out of Egypt, right? And they come here and they take this eastern part, and then they are now entering into Shiloh. They got whole lots of stuff they need to do. In the Deuteronomic law, or as some say, the conservatives say that the Deuteronomic law that was written by Moses and handed to the people before he dies, is then passed and given to these people. They go into the land, okay? They cross the Jordan River. Joshua leads them to decimate Jericho, and then and so on. 31 cities are destroyed eventually, and then the people are at peace. Okay, there's a sense of peace. Joshua and his generation of leaders all ensure that there's a certain level of peace there. Okay, but after Joshua dies, and this is the beginning of the book of Judges. After Joshua dies, we see something that's happening. Okay, this is the interlude into the introduction to Samuel, right? In the story of Judges, we see the people forgetting what the Lord has done, and they began to do what they themselves want to do, which is basically start worshipping all kinds of gods, right? I listed down a whole list of names of gods like Molech and all that kind of stuff, and all kinds of horrible practices that these gods do, right? Kind of like what we do today, right? We've got all kinds of gods. So we are also surrounded by a very multi-religious society. We've got Hinduism, we've got all these gods all around us. Now, of course, for us, or at least for the Chinese, I speak for the Chinese here, we don't go out there and suddenly start worshipping some god, right? But maybe we do a little bit, like okay, feng shui, or we say, okay, is my house in good feng shui? Maybe consult a feng shui master, a Christian, maybe employing a feng shui master to come and see your house, maybe. Or maybe a Christian saying, okay, well, maybe I'll occasionally pray to Guan Yin for some protection when I'm traveling, things like that. These are how all these things start to seep in, or you go to worship, not worship, but clean your graves, the graves of your ancestors. And then your parents ask you, okay, you bow down to your ancestors, and then you kind of like, okay, I have to honor my parents, I have to bow down to their ancestors, things like that, right? These things happen, right, even in Malaysia, right, and other parts of the world. So, but the people, as time went on, okay, and I tell you a sad story here, a true fact, right, is that many years ago in the 1800s in Malaysia, in a whole boatload of Fuzhou Chinese Christian from Fuzhou, the district of Fuzhou in China, they came down to Malaysia, or Nanyang, alright, and on board were 600 Christians and 200 non-Christians, and by the end of the journey, all 800 were Christians, right? And then they landed in this place called Cebu, okay? And that whole Cebu town was Fuzhou Christian town, right? It was a gospel town, but now Cebu Christians are only 30 to 40% of the entire town, meaning that the Christians have the ancestors that came to that place were all Christian, 800 of them, the settlers, right? And then as the town grew and success and all that kind of stuff, these people began to start worshipping the Chinese. They're all Chinese, right? They're all Chinese guys, and they start worshipping all this. And it's very sad, when I was in Cebu, they tell me the story about how, you go to a cemetery, right, in Cebu, and it's a Christian cemetery, right? All the old fellas, all the dead, and you see all these people, the younger generation, going in to pray to these Christian dead, right, in their own ceremonial ways, right? Offering all this pink color, all that kind of stuff, right? It's tragic, right? What one generation after that, you lose all that. That's exactly happening. You can see that in Malaysia. So in that Israel time, right, these guys were starting to kind of lose it, right? And this central temple complex, or at least this tent complex, right, that was located there, is again that tent structure set up in that location, and the priests being that central area to minister to whatever needs that the people have. If they commit a sin, they come to the Shiloh and do their stuff. But notice one big difference now. In the past, when this Mishkan or this temple was introduced, it's a kind of a 15-minute walk away from your campsite if you did something wrong. Okay? Because you're all camped out, right, in the middle of nowhere, right? You've got 40 years of doing nothing, right? And people start fighting, right? People start, pulling each other's hair. Right, Then it was okay, let's settle it the sacrificial way. You walk all the way from your camp, wherever that camp is, right? Because there's a system, right? In the book of Numbers, there's a whole system. The entrance of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, is here. And okay. Then you've got 1, 2, 3 tribes here, 1, 2, 3 tribes here, 1, 2, 3 tribes here, 1, 2, 3 tribes here. Okay, so you walk from your camp to the entrance of the tent, and where this is where Moses, Aaron, and others stay, right in front of the tent to prevent people from just simply going in. Right, they go into the tent and they say, okay, I've done something wrong. Please help me. The priest will then kind of do that kind of sacrifice. But now that they're in the promised land, they're in Canaan. Okay, it's a long journey. Okay, and they have to make that long journey to Shiloh 3 times a year. Okay, the Jews have 2 more other things special from us Chinese or Indians, I don't know. But the Chinese were like, oh, we can go back to Balik Kampung. We have this Balik Kampung tradition, right? And once a year we go back for Chinese New Year. But for the Jews, they go back 3 times a year. Okay, Passover, Feast of Tabernacles, and Yom Kippur, right? Anyway, now the central location is in Shiloh, okay? And all around, the people are just not following Yahwism anymore, okay? It's syncretism. Syncretic, right? Where you worship all kinds of gods. Just like the Hindus, right? Hindus syncretic, right? You are polytheistic, right? This creed or credo is your belief. So sin is everything synchronized together. So you are believing all these creeds at the same time. Or polytheistic is you're worshipping many gods, slightly different nuance but the same idea, right? So these guys were all polytheists, right? As opposed to monotheism, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? The God of Abraham. Abraham says there's only one God, and it's YHWH, or at least he didn't know the name yet. Then Moses comes along and says, okay, his name is YHWH, and he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and there's no other gods before him, right? If you look at the Ten Commandments, there is and there should be no other gods before this God, YHWH, okay? So, but the people did not follow it, right? In the book of Judges, right? They were following all other gods, okay? Now, then we get the story of Hannah. Hannah gets pregnant eventually, offers Samuel as the firstborn, okay? And Samuel is a Nazarite, okay? Meaning that at birth, throughout the whole 9 months that Hannah carried him, she didn't touch any wine, right? So he's a Nazarite at birth. He cannot touch wine. He doesn't cut his hair. Somewhat similar to another guy just before him, Samson, exactly. And also New Testament, okay, there's another guy also somewhat similar to that. John the Baptist, very good. And another big thing that may not be so obvious is Jesus is on a Nazarite fast. Did you know that? Right now. Why?
Because he cannot drink wine.
Exactly. When Jesus was at the Last Supper, he said this, when they drank the wine, okay, he drank the wine with them. Okay, he drank wine that time, and wine is very normal for the Middle Eastern guy. But then he said this to them, he says, I will not drink the fruit of the wine until I drink it with you together in my Father's kingdom. So in that sense, he's on a super long Nazarite fast, not touching alcohol until he comes back again. Okay, and restores the kingdom. What, 2,000 years so far in counting. Okay, but of course, God to God, 2,000 years is nothing. Anyway, so Samuel was a Nazarite, right? And he is on he's on target. You know the story of how he was called, right? As a young boy, he's sleeping inside the holy place, okay, where the candelabra is, to make sure the candle doesn't go out. So they have to fill this canister, right? I mean, so the candelabra is something like this, 7 sticks, right, like that, and then you've got this little opening there when you pour the olive oil inside to keep the flames going, right? So he's there to make sure that the light doesn't go out, okay? And only Levites can go into the holy place. Even David, the great king, right, cannot even go into the holy place.
The holy place? Or
Yeah.
The holy of holies?
The holy of holies, even Levites cannot go in there, okay? Levites cannot go into the holy of holies. Only Aaron's sons and the line of Aaron can go into holy of holies, okay? So David couldn't go into the holy place, and he never stepped foot into the holy place, okay? But anyway, coming back here is Samuel, on the other hand, was sleeping inside the holy place as a young boy, okay? Yeah, he's a Levite. He's a Levite who was staying in the Ephraimite country. This one is a bit of Bible knowledge. You read Chronicles and all that, you find like Samuel, son of Elkanah. Anyway, Okay, so I always thought he was an Ephraimite until I read that portion. Anyway, so Samuel is a Levite. He's sleeping in the holy place, and then God calls him. Okay, God calls him and says, Samuel, right? And Samuel thinks that it's Eli who's calling him. So he wakes up, opens the curtain, rushes to. Obviously, Eli is not sleeping in the most holy place. I mean, not in the holy place. He's probably sleeping outside the tent, maybe. I mean, outside the Mishkan, maybe just slightly outside, a small little tent outside. So he rushes out the temple complex, rushes into the tent of Eli and says, Eli, did you call me? Father, right? And Eli says, no, I didn't call you. Better sleep. Right? So Samuel goes in and falls asleep. And again, the voice of God calls him, Samuel, right? So he gets up again, he goes to Eli, here I am. Eli, what do you want? Right? And Eli says, I didn't call you, right? And again he goes back, and then again the voice says, Samuel, Samuel. And then after a while, Eli's like, okay, I think I know what's going on here, alright? He says, I think it's the Lord who is calling you. Okay? And Samuel has never heard the Lord speak to him before in his life. He's just doing the whole ritual of serving Eli. Eli does do this, okay, do that, and he just follows. He has never had a personal experience with YHWH, the Lord, right? Lord, capital, right? Same thing, okay? He has never had an experience with YHWH before, never heard his voice before, okay? But Eli knows well enough to tell Samuel that it is the Lord. And next time you hear him, you must say, Speak, Lord, speak, YHWH, for your servant is. Okay? So he teaches him a very simple thing that he will use for the rest of his life, right? Eli, this horrible guy who allowed his sons to sleep around with the women who came to the entrance, who was very lax and all that kind of stuff. He teaches, or God uses him to teach Samuel how to listen to God. Very simple. Just say when he calls you, just say speak. For I listen. So Samuel does that. He goes back to the temple, and then when God calls him again, Samuel. He gets up, looks around, and says, Speak, Lord, or speak, Adonai, for your servant is listening. And then, at a young age, God says, I will kill Eli and his family. I will strike them and I will kill them. And this poor kid is listening to all of this, right? And his sons will be killed in one day, even for his sins of it they done against Israel. Okay? And so the next day, Samuel, as you know the story, he's very scared. Okay? He opens the doors, and Eli comes in and he's obviously curious, like, okay, what does the Lord have to do? Because the Lord has stopped speaking to me, right? But the Lord speaking to you. So what does the Lord say? And so Samuel is like, like a small kid, right? I mean, like, you won't know how to hide this kind of people, like, oh, the Lord has spoken what he has spoken, that kind of thing. But this is a small kid, doesn't know how to hide this kind of information, right? So he's like, then this Eli says, I swear by the Lord, if you don't say you're going to get punished, okay. So he said everything, told him, I know how to. And God was actually trying to warn Eli to repent. Whenever in the Old Testament God says, I will strike you down and your blood will be scattered all over the thing and dogs will come and lick it and all that kind of stuff, horrible, judgment and all that kind of stuff on you. Let's say God sends a prophet to tell you this, right? God is actually hoping you will repent. And you'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh dear, I really made a mistake. I messed up. I'm so sorry, God. Go and offer whatever sacrifice you need to offer and cry and wear sackcloth and say, I'm sorry, okay? I'm not going to do this ever again, okay? Which we have seen certain characters do in the Old Testament and certain characters who didn't do, when they were given the same warnings. But Eli was not one of these characters who put on sackcloth and started mourning and fasting. He didn't. He just went on his merry way. He just said, well, the Lord will do whatever the Lord wants to do. Basically, I don't really care.
What's wrong with him?
He's the high priest.
What's wrong with him?
He's the high priest. Okay? So, I mean, I don't want to begin to imagine and think about what he was thinking at the time.
So that means if his line is dead.
Aaron's line is gone.
Aaron's line is gone. But even to this very day, right, we are being blessed by people from the Aaronic and the Levitical line.
Aaronic, but I thought it's dead.
Okay lah, we are not sure. Some people say, oh, I still can am I tracing to the Aaronic line, right? Like even Zechariah, John the Baptist, remember John the Baptist? John the Baptist, Zechariah, all these guys are actually supposedly from the priestly line, but we're not sure whether it's really from the Aaronic line or not.
Is it because like the Christians slept around?
Sorry? No, not that. Okay, but whatever it is, the Aaronic line is all but gone. Okay, now in the present. But at the time, Eli, in just a few generations had already, done such a horrible thing. And his two sons, okay, were horrible people as well, right? So God raised another Levite who's not from that Aaronic line, or it could be, I don't know, but because Aaron had a few sons, and you know the story. Aaron had about 5 sons. 2 sons died straight away, right? They offered some strange fire, God struck them down in the desert. 2 of them died. Okay. Then he had 3 more sons remaining: Eleazar, Ithamar, and Phinehas, I think, right? And these Eleazar and Phinehas were okay, right? But they were okay lah. There were some good priests and there were some bad priests lah. Okay, bad priests always died. I mean, the good priests always died. I don't know why. Like Abiathar gets slaughtered by Saul. Okay, but anyway, these 2 guys, the 2 bad guys that Eli had, they were eventually slaughtered. They were killed, right? And so Samuel, okay, as a young boy, is told that that entire Eli line would be wiped out, which it was like eventually. What happened was, while Samuel was growing up, the 2 boys, Eli's 2 sons, when the Philistines, now this was the Philistines who came and attacked them. Now the Philistines are located here, the sea people. Okay, some say they are actually Greeks, okay, from ancient Greece, who sailed over and they had technology, some of the bronze metallurgy, how to mix certain chemicals to make that kind of thing. So what was happening is that the people, the Israelites, didn't have that kind of technology, right? David and Goliath, right? The story of David and Goliath. Goliath was armed to the teeth with whatever bronze armor, with a shield, metal shield, with a javelin, with a metal tip, with a helmet that was made of metal, and whatever, right? And all these Israelites they're all standing at the battle line, completely without armor. All of them don't have armor. The only guy with armor is Saul. Saul's the only guy with that armor. That's why he was like, okay, you better take my armor. Because I'm like the only guy here that has money to buy a piece of armor, and it protects my body and all that, and I've got sword, right? Only me and Jonathan have swords. The rest all use what? Sticks lah, sling lah, and all that kind of stuff. All these guys were, completely, cannot fight the Philistines. Philistines all had swords and all these things and so that's why the Israelites were very scared. And to make matters worse, you've got this 7-foot, 6-foot guy who is trained since young how to fight. A Shaquille O'Neal of hand-to-hand combat, right? You're already on the basketball court, right? And you face not just a good basketball player, but a basketball player who is so tall and knows how to play, who actually knows how to play, like Shaquille O'Neal. He takes the ball from you and he goes poosh in your face, right? So they see a Shaquille O'Neal of hand-to-hand combat standing there. He says, "I defy the armies of the Lord, the Yahweh," right? Anybody send a champion over before I win? Okay, anyway, so that was the situation. Now, so Samuel was young, as a young boy. These guys, these Israelites, were being terrorized now with the Philistines. They were terrorized by other surrounding countries, the Midianites, the Ammonites, and all these different guys were coming and terrorizing them. And let me just put that into perspective here. Currently now, in modern day Israel, they're terrorized by the Palestinians. Palestinians go in there and 30 people die. It's horrible. You live in fear all the time. Am I going to be the next one? Right? And it's as bad as, you go into downtown Jerusalem in a Starbucks cafe and you're just sitting there minding your own business and some guy just walks in and you're dead. And there's no way to escape. That kind of fear that you get whenever you leave the house in Israel. And these Jews are like, this is my home country, why should I be living in fear? Right? That's the kind of sense they have today. Okay? But back in those days, right, they were being assailed and attacked by people with this kind of technology, far superior than they had. And so these soldiers went out for war, okay? They mustered all the army and they got all their whatever chaplang weapons that they could have. They fought against the Philistines and the Philistines slaughtered them, right? And these two sons of Eli thought that if I bring the Ark of the Covenant, then, we'll have victory. Kind of like Joshua, right? Now, what happened in Joshua's case was, Joshua, when he attacked Jericho, God asked him to bring the Ark of the Covenant and bring it around the temple, around Jericho 7 times, right? Or at least 6 times once a day and 7 times on the 7th day, okay? So, they carried the Ark of the Covenant. Of course, they covered it, right? So they covered the Ark of the Covenant so that nobody can see it. And they will carry it, circle Jericho once, every day. And so with that mindset, the sons of Aaron thought, okay, if I bring the Ark of the Covenant into battle, we'll win. So they did, but they died. They were slaughtered, okay? And the Ark of the Covenant was captured by the Philistines. And there are 5 towns in Philistia, right? Right? Ashdod, Ekron, Ashkelon, Gath, and Gaza. 5 towns of Philistia. Just 5 towns. Create so much headache for the Israelites. Okay? This is 5 towns. Okay? Eventually, back to this. And the great exile, all of them wipe out of the map. There are no Philistines alive today. There's no such thing as Philistines now. No. Okay? Wiped out off the map. Babylonians came, just cleaned them out. Massacre everything, right? So, but during the time of David, and this period is about 1100 BC. Okay? During this time, they were a serious threat. Okay? So they took the Ark of the Covenant, and Samuel now, after the death of Eli, he hears the story of his 2 sons killed in one day, and the Ark of the Covenant was captured, and that was one of his greatest fears. He was so afraid that the Ark of the Covenant would be captured. Okay? And true enough, both his sons and the Ark of the Covenant, like the worst possible outcome, happened to him, and he was not prepared for it. In shock, he fell backwards and broke his neck. Okay, so his sons are dead. Ark of the Covenant is captured, and one of the sons' wives who was pregnant at the time. Yeah, the sons were married, and yet they were sleeping around, right? So the son who was pregnant, she gave birth, delivered, and she died as well. Okay, so the Ark of the Covenant was captured. Don't know where it went, right? It went to one of the towns, and in that town, it created so much problems, right? They were so happy, whoa, we got the Ark of the Covenant, the God of the Jews, right? The Hebrews, right? The YHWH, right? So they brought this Ark of the Covenant into the temple of their god, Dagon, okay? Dagon was the god of the Philistines. So they put it at the foot of the temple, and then there's a stairway up there, and then the idol is there. So it's like, now this God is smaller than our God. He's at the foot of the stairs, worshipping one. But the opposite happens, right? Why? Because the next day when the priests came open the doors of the temple, they found the entire statue of Dagon on its feet in front of the small little Ark of the Covenant.
And like broken up into pieces.
Yeah, and the hands and his head broken before the Ark of the Covenant.
It's like a prisoner, right?
So, all these priests are like, oh, that's like an ominous foretaste of what is to come. Why? Because later on, the entire town, whichever one of these towns, there was disease breaking out. People getting boils and dying of cancer or whatever it is. All kinds of horrible things happening, right? All because of this Ark of the Covenant. So all these Philistines are freaking out. They're like, oh my goodness, this is really bad. Not good feng shui. So they started to move the Ark away from that town to another town. And then a similar situation happened. So after a while, the news got around. All these 5 towns says, we don't want it. No, sorry, but this is a trophy which we don't want. Okay? So they said, we want to send it back, right? And so the Philistine priests or whatever it is, they said, okay, what you do is, you put the Ark of the Covenant on a cart. Okay? Now they didn't know that the only proper way to move an Ark of the Covenant is by human bodies. You must get humans to carry it. And this is an interesting analogy also to even today, right? The Church of God is not confined to buildings or structures made by men. The Church of God is humans, people. So you can take away the structure, you can take away the whole, building. You can't take away the church. The church is still there, right? But some people say, "Oh no, my church has burned down. Oh, end of the world, persecution, whatever it is." But the Church of God is not. And that's exactly what happened to my previous church, right? There was a gas leak. Boom! The whole church was on fire. Then my pastor's wife was crying her heart out. "Oh, God is punishing us, the church." But it's just a building. And all of us young people were like, "Wow, the church is on fire." It was a real. Anyway, we're by a Presbyterian church, but it's supposed to be burning bush. So we're like, "Yeah, this is really so sad." Okay, so they're supposed to carry on back, but the Philistines didn't know better, right? They didn't know all these laws, 613 laws. So they put it on a cart, and they got 2 cows, right? That means female cows, who had just given birth to their calves, and put it there. It says, if really it is the Lord, and all that kind of stuff, these 2 these cows will bring the Ark of the Covenant away from our territory, if it really is the Lord. Okay, and if it's really the right thing to do. So we'll test the system and all that kind of stuff. Then, and true enough, these 2 cows just kept going, leaving the town, left their little yearlings or their little calves behind, which is very, very unusual. Okay, so the Philistines are like, "Oh, okay, don't mess with this, the God of the Hebrews, right?" So anyway, this one went into Jewish Hebrew territory, right? Crossed over into Hebrew territory and went to one of the houses of some guy. They opened it up and then died. 70 people died. Jews, right? They're like, "Oh, the Ark of the Covenant, yeah!" Very died. Okay, so, but then they, another priest come and took it, kind of looked after it, and kind of, and then God blessed that one. Okay, but while all this was happening, Samuel was growing up. Okay, Samuel was growing up, and now that he knew.
Sorry, under whose guidance?
No more guidance,
He's going alone?
Yeah, but he's learned all the stuff that Eli had taught him already, lah. Okay, so now he as a young man was growing up, and he knew all the stuff already by now, and he can hear the voice of God telling him to do different things. And at that young age, at one point in time, the Philistines attacked Israel, and Samuel was called to help. So he goes to the battle line, okay, and instead, all these Israelites are all freaking out, right? Because there's a huge army of Philistines coming to attack Israel, all the tribes. And all these tribes are all quaking and shaking and crying, and Samuel do something, right? So Samuel says, "Okay, let's all go to the battle line, and let's stand there, and we're going to offer sacrifice to God." Okay? So all these people are like, "What is he doing?" Okay? So he makes a simple offering, a burnt offering, okay? He sets up a little mini altar there and then on the spot, and then they have that little burnt offering, and then suddenly there is thunder and lightning, and he strikes the Philistines army, and all the Philistine army freaks out. They're like, "What's going on?" And it's hitting them, and their horses, their chariots, they are conduct electricity, their armor, right? So all die lah, right? A lot of people die. They go freaking out. They all run away. And Samuel doesn't lift a finger, doesn't even lift a spear, right? And all of them like, "Oh, Samuel. Oh, okay. You're boss already. Okay, boss. They call him boss." So from that day onwards, they respected Samuel for the rest of his life. But Samuel had 2 sons. And those 2 sons were also not as good as Samuel. And they took bribes. Okay? So when it came time for him to die, Samuel of course hoped that his sons would take over and carry on this thing. But the people said, "Thanks, but no thanks. We can also see that they don't have what you had, lah." Okay? And so Samuel was a bit sad, lah, right? And then the people said, "I think now is a good time to ask for a king." Okay? So all the leaders all together before Samuel, like, "Samuel, there's a, oh no, Super good die already, right? So all people gather before Samuel, all the elders, and these are like 70-year-old fellas talking to like a 90-year-old, Samuel. Okay lah, maybe Samuel was not that old lah. Okay, maybe Samuel was about 80-ish, right? So they come to this old Master Ukui or something, right? And they come to him and say, okay, you are getting old and your sons are not so good and all that. Sorry, but no offense, but no, don't mean to disrespect, but your sons are just not good. Okay, so we would like to make a proposal. Then Samuel's like, yeah, I know. You all want a king, right? And the people are like, yeah, how do you know? Samuel, Samuel. Right? So they're like, yeah, we want a king, right? But we don't know how to do it, right? So maybe you can pray to the Lord, right? Since you're his like whatever, and you anoint a king for us, okay? Because we don't know how to do it. So Samuel said, okay, I'll go and ask the Lord. He went back to the Lord, and the Lord says, Samuel was like, God, what's going on? Then God's like, they are not rejecting you, they are rejecting me. You read the Bible, it's there, right? Samuel's like, God, then God's like, they are not rejecting you, they are rejecting you. Why? Because in the previous judges and Moses and all these other guys, these guys are like random people taken from God will suddenly come upon this person, the Holy Spirit, the Ruach Elohim, okay, Spirit of God, come upon this guy, or woman sometimes, the prophetess, the Borah and so on, right? And then they will suddenly be filled with the Holy Spirit and say, we'll do this, we'll do that, and it's precise and it's exactly what is needed at the time, okay? And God doesn't have the dynasty. God doesn't, He doesn't have a generation as the kings, but the system of the world is always dynasty based, right? So I want to have my heritage, I want to leave a legacy, right? My son and all that kind of stuff. And even my son is not so good, I don't care, just make sure this dynasty doesn't break. The line of kings does not break, right? So the people wanted that, right? They wanted to be ruled by humans rather than by this random appearance of God at a time of great need. Okay? So I don't know what you think about that, but okay. So they say we want a king to combine and unite all our tribes and help us to fight against the foreign threats, okay, foreign policy. So then Samuel said, okay, fine. And there's this whole story about Saul, which you will study later on in your prophets. But Saul is this young man from the tribe of Benjamin. Okay. Now, Benjamin is significant. Why? Because Benjamin is the youngest, smallest tribe of Israel. The youngest, the last tribe. Okay. And the Benjamites, in the last few chapters of Judges, were nearly completely wiped out. Okay, what was the story? The story was like this. Okay, there was a Levite, okay, was traveling in the hill country of Judah, okay, all hill country, right? Then there was the Jebusite city of Jerusalem. At the time, it was not taken by David yet, so it was still under the Jebusites, okay. Jerusalem. So foreigners Gentiles eating pork okay, they eat pork. So this Levi is like, okay, they travel with the concubine, okay, there's a whole story about how he wanted to leave, then the father of the concubine says, no, stay, and then eat, until like every day the father keeps asking him to stay, don't travel, right? Basically the father wanted the two of them to get married and then set up a family and stay somewhere nearby. But this Levi, who had a concubine, who was not really a married wife in a sense, wanted to leave, okay, and that was how bad things were. This is a Levi who's not even in a real marriage. He has a concubine. It's kind of like cohabitation. You know what I mean? You're having sex, but you are not husband and wife, okay, and that was going on there, right? Then anyway, he was traveling, so he wanted to leave. He finally said, okay, we leave, all right, and they left very late. Usually you leave in the morning because it takes a long time to travel. So he left late, right, in the evening, and he couldn't travel very far. So he traveled a little bit, and there was a Jebusite city, which is Jerusalem. And he thought, should I go to Jerusalem or should I not? So he thought that he wouldn't go to Jerusalem because it was a Gentile city. And he decided to go to the other location, which is in the heart of Benjamite territory, which is this place called Gibeah. Okay? This little town called Gibeah. And he thought in his mind that if I go to a fellow Hebrew Jewish town, it'll be better. Okay? So what happens is he goes with the concubine to Gibeah, and this is now by now like 11 p.m. at night, very late. Okay, so he goes in there, and he stays in the town. What do you call that? Square. Okay.
So sorry. I don't get sorry. So that he with that concubine, then the concubine's father wanted him to stay.
No. The concubine's father was in Judah, in this area, Judah, and so he's moving back up to Ephraim, back to where he is. Okay, so the concubine father asked him to stay, but he said no, I need to go back to my home country. So
With
he's
the
traveling
daughter, with the
away.
daughter.
Yeah, with the concubine, yes, or the daughter lah, the father. So anyway, the father's out of picture now. Okay, father's out of picture. Now he's traveling with the concubine, right? So now they are at Gibeah, this small little town. He doesn't know where this place is, but he's like, okay, it's one of our, whatever. It's not in Judah territory, it's in Benjamin territory. So assuming everybody's brothers and stuff like that, he's assuming that. He goes into the center of the town, there's nobody there, and he decides to camp there and sleep there out in the open, which is very normal, right? Because the kind of weather is fine for that kind of thing. So you're going to sleep out in the open, start to get out, he's mad for the concubine and he's own mad and things like that. And suddenly this old guy comes along. He says, hey, where are you from? He's like, oh, I'm a Levite from this Ephraim town, whatever, and I was in Judah, blah, blah, blah. And I thought I'd just come over here because I started late. This old man says, please don't stay here because, bad things will happen. And you're like, what do you mean bad things will happen? I mean, this is a safe town, it's a small town, you can sleep there, whatever. He says, no. You come and stay. Okay? So the guy says, I'm from the Ephraimite time as well. Right? I'm an Ephraimite working in this Benjamin town. So just trust me, come with me. So the guy said, okay, whatever, you open a house. Okay. So he and the concubine packed up their stuff and went to stay with this Ephraimite guy in his house. Okay? And the Ephraimite closes the door and they start talking, and this guy's like, hey, thank you so much, man. So thank you for generosity, and this concubine is sleeping in the room, right? She's tired, all that kind of stuff. And so the two men are just up late talking and drinking some wine or getting refreshed and whatever it is. And the Ephraimite guy is like, which part are you from? Yeah, things are not as bad as they used, blah, blah, blah. Right? And then in the middle at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, there's banging on the door. And calls out this guy's name. Fleck him, Then this old man goes to the door and says, yes, what is it? It's so late, please, can you give me some, peace and quiet. Like, we saw there's some guests here, right? And we want to do the guy. You're like, hey? Isn't that like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? Where the people of that city wanted to do the two angels? Okay, little did they know who they're messing with. Right? But this case, they wanted to do the guy. These are men of the town wanting to do the guy, right? Not even the girl. Okay? So this old man said, oh, please don't, my friends, he's my guest and all that. What did he say? What? Who are you to tell us what to do? You are not even from our town. Okay? Benjamin banging the door, say, don't do it, we'll come in, we'll take the two of you. Okay? So they say, don't lie, then this old man's like, don't do this to my guests, all that kind of stuff. Then in that kind of, it's very tense, it's very scary, right? What does the guy Levi do? He goes into his room, drags out the poor girl, the concubine who's sleeping. He says, hey, get up! Huh, what? And he drags her, what's going on? Then opens the door, chucks her outside, and closes and locks the door. He's just like, no. And then the guys take her, strip her, and gang rape her until she dies the next day. She's bleeding, and his body is broken. Her screams fill the night. Okay, and in the next morning she crawls back and puts her hand on the threshold of the door and dies. Wonderful story of the Bible. Yeah, like Bible got such thing, right?
Yeah, I read.
Yeah, okay. Open your eyes to 18 SX stuff, okay? Right?
But
so,
what the Levi did was worse in the end. He cut her
No. She's already dead.
But he
Okay, listen. Okay, listen. Okay, so what happens is he opens the door, sees her dead. Okay, fine, whatever. I mean, what to do, right? He knew that this was going to happen. I mean, it's not even the concubine's fault here. It's his fault. I mean, he didn't sacrifice
What's
himself.
wrong with him?
Yeah, okay, right? Before you're like, oh man.
Father though, why didn't he want them to marry first and then let?
No, he tried to, but the Levi didn't want to get married.
Then won't let the daughter go with him.
So he's a player.
Anyway,
Isn't
so
that the main point, like, the
okay.
main point,
So
the main point?
so he takes the girl and then he's like so disgusted by the town. He takes the woman, puts the dead woman, bleeding and all that, puts her on his donkey and rides all the way back to his Ephraim town with the dead body on his
Didn't he, like,
donkey.
cut her or something?
Not yet, not yet. Okay?
Oh
So
my
he
gosh.
takes a little donkey ride with the dead concubine on his donkey. I can't imagine how horrible the smell would have been, right? When he gets home to his own home country in Ephraim, he gets down from the donkey and he cuts up this dead body into 12 parts. So cuts off the hand, cuts off the hand, cuts off this one, cuts off this one,
I
cuts
really
off,
don't like that guy.
cuts off the head, okay? And then, right, sends a part of the body to every tribe in the land, and he says this with the message, this is how far we have fallen. He wanted to show, and then with each messenger, so maybe he get 12 young men, and he tells them, okay, you take this, you take this, you take this, and bound in the cloth, right? And then when you get there, you give to the leader of the tribe. Say, I want to find the leader of the tribe of Dan. I want to find the leader of the tribe of Reuben, right? And then when you reach the